Okay, you may begin.
I am calling today's TAD meeting to order. And approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I don't think it was distributed, I think.
But we didn't have a quorum, so we couldn't do anything.
Yeah, we didn't post those, didn't
Did we?
we? I think we did.
Yeah, so we really have to start taking meetings and publish them. Can I ask for a volunteer? And who wants to be vice chair? We have, aren't you, Mike, are you vice chair?
Only by seniority.
Yeah, it's
It's probably a good idea.
yeah. Take notes this time, Mike.
Okey-dokey.
Yeah. Just so we don't have to dump on the newbie, right? Which is normally the way it'd be. Okay. And today's Rob's first meeting as an official member.
Welcome. I'm
Thanks.
Carrie.
Nice to meet you, Gary. What's the spelling of your last name? DANGEL. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So we approved the no minutes. And we will take minutes from now on, try to be better at that. The number two thing, I on the data backup redundancy, I mean, I've been on it for a while without Roger here, it's kind of a moot point. So I will, I think we'll pass till the next meeting to discuss it in more detail, and I just think that we just, it's been on the top of my list for a while now. At least a year.
Are you talking about data redundancy? You're doing the backup or just in general where you're putting?
Immutable storage.
Yeah.
I believe that we need to have, and you may throw this on your agenda too. Just back everything up that you've got now that you feel is really important. You run it through a thing to double check to make sure you can restore it while it's offline. Okay, and then it's unplugged and dumped in a fire safe. And that way, if we're ever hit, you can lose 6 months of stuff or something, but you at least have something.
Yeah, no, I mean, Dave, you said something, I'll. With Roger not being here, I can talk to you about what the schools are doing.
Sure.
If you want, just.
Yeah, why don't you go
to say
over that? Yeah.
It's hard, it's a hard concept when you think about it, especially with transactional data in a big, SQL database. A system like our student information system is changing so fast that what backup do you go to is always a problem, right? Because there's so much work being done in the last 10 minutes. Where do you stop, right? We've had this problem before. So we actually approach it as we actually back up. So obviously everything is moving to the cloud. We're moving everything to enterprise cloud systems that do enterprise backups, multiple redundant servers where they are. We always try to implement that. Not every vendor is at that level, but our core stuff is. Then I actually pull back. So I actually pull back data via like SQL queries back in non, they're not in the format of their database, but in plain text. Flat, so I can have it. So if I'm looking at my school database, I'm pulling the teachers, the students, the grades, all back flat, recreating that database, but in a file format that's usable if something goes wrong. So if we were to lose access to that system completely, I can rebuild those records without trying to find paper and whatever. I've got it all, and I can rebuild another system outside of that full backup stuff. That's the model we're trying to take with most of our systems that are core and critical, is pulling that data back and storing it in an actual, as you know, a readable format, not in some proprietary database format that only that system can open. What happens to that whole system? Anyway, that's our plan of attack. It hasn't been easy. It takes time and effort, but we're trying to make sure we're doing a better job of that in the core data.
And so, Rob's, by the way, this is his expertise, why he came on to the board. And so, from the Carl's view is the strategic level is that literally, I want you to think about buying a disk subsystem that you can unplug. Rob can talk to you about the more details about, you have to pull it off. You have to run it through a filter to make sure you didn't get anything bad, and then you shove it off into a room.
So what you're talking about is like a complete physical air gap, which is akin to tape where you take a hard drive and that's kind of an archaic way to do it. It's one way to do it. Government does that, like the federal government does that. I don't think that, at least what I see in the industry from a data protection perspective, that's necessary. But this is where I'll disagree with you a little bit, but.
No, and that's okay. We
yeah.
just need to have. Explain,
Yeah.
so in your opinion, what would you tell the schools that they should be looking at?
So anytime I hear pulling down things, clear text, storing it somewhere, you then have to worry about, okay, where I'm storing it, am I protecting that from criminals, right?
Right,
Because
right.
if it's in clear text and kind of a format-free thing, it's like now I have to worry about how am I securing it? How am I keeping that backup of my backup secure?
Right.
Right, and that just adds to complexity and your.
And also,
Yeah.
and it limits the data I will pull, like I don't pull nursing data back
Mhm.
because of that, like. so
Yeah,
if
because of
it's-
HIPAA,
So
right?
if it's HIPAA compliant data, I
Yeah.
can't pull it back, and then I have to maintain that. I can't pull back credit card transactions. I can't pull back that kind of stuff, but we're okay with that. And
Mm-hmm.
like, if I have to rebuild a nurse's record, I can. Like.
What's it being stored in? So what's the application?
So the nurses use a system called Snap, is one. of the
Oh,
two
yeah,
that-
I get those emails all the time, so,
And.
yeah.
There's one of two systems that people use these days, and it's what they like, and, it's HIPAA compliant, But, if you actually started looking at the system, it's kind of an older looking system when you look at it, but I can't pull, medical data back. I would not be able to,
Yeah.
and I don't do that.
Snap's a SaaS app though, right? It's a service delivered.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a challenge, but I hear earlier that you have SQL databases that are transactional and you're working.
Yeah, so like our
on
main PowerSchool
Yep.
system, that's all SQL, and, it's a full Oracle database, and,
it. Okay,
but I have access as a database administrator to grab that stuff. And I can pull, which is nice, because I can pull full tables back.
yeah, so PowerSchool is a hosted app as well, though.
It is just,
Right.
we went hosted, luckily for us, right from Granddad. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's hosted now, but we have, VPN set up with them, so that.
you pull that data back, right?
Right.
So they're
That's
they're
more data,
responsible.
Like, that's data, like their people's grades, people's
Yep.
attendance, name, address, contact information, all stuff that would be a nightmare to rebuild. Had we, have the lost data.
And you're storing it kind of in kind of an open format, just to give you flexibility in case you decide to toss that vendor.
Yeah,
It's
I
giving you
store-
some portability.
We have a database that we have on our side that we pulled into, and we can do exports of text if we want to, or we haven't figured out what the best, we actually honestly haven't figured out, once we pull it to our database, what's the best way, like you say, to store it, like where are you putting it, and what relevance did it have yesterday versus today, that kind of stuff, and so we do have to work that next piece out of how secure is our data, and I mean, I'm not secure, but where do we put it, like in the safe or whatever, like that's hard to do these days, like
Mhm.
walk a tape, like Larry used to do, walk a tape over and put it in the safe. By the time you do that, data's out of date, and, so,
So you're not running any kind of like nightly automation to pull the stuff down, like if you're.
I
doing
know,
a-
I have nightly automation pulled down, but now I should be then backing up that too, saying like, I probably need to back up that somewhere out of that database. But at that point, we're already talking about, we have multiple copies, right?
Yeah.
We have them, we have their backup, their multiple running backup, and then my backup.
If they're promising you an SLA of a certain backup, I don't see why you would need to continue, like, I get it
Only
for,
because we had it fail.
they had PowerSchool fail or they had Snap?
Back in the day, not recently, but they had it fail where they had a drive fail on their server and they asked for their backup. They in the old days, PowerSchool would actually they had a support team that would maintain our server. Like they would be able to remote, they would take care of your server so you wouldn't have to have a DBA doing that. But that's, now that they went hosted, that all went away. But in those days, they had a hard drive fail and they asked for the backup and the backup failed. And
It sounds like a breach of contract, really.
always a
Yeah.
big problem, yeah.
I-
And
I would
that
assume-
sort of sent shockwave through all of us saying, whoa, hold on. You know, because if you can't trust that, then what are we paying for? You know?
Exactly.
And they were, I mean, it was a huge problem on their end too, and that was pre this last purchase, where they're owned by different people now.
Yeah, I would imagine. that the
They were owned by
powers-
Pearson, they were owned by Pearson at the time, for years.
Yeah, that is,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
I would imagine though that like they've kind of fixed that and
Yeah.
they're doing more cloud-based
Yeah.
stuff. But
The hardest part, as you know, is like testing that backup, you know, that, everyone says have backups, but how do
Yeah.
you gotta test them.
you gotta test it.
Do you back up
Yeah.
any of the Google stuff, the platform?
The Google, none of that stuff back now. I
Okay.
mean, you can imagine, so the amount of data.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know
No,
anybody that backs up Google and
Yeah.
Google
So-
Workspace. Nobody
so
does.
take
Yeah.
our email,
Right.
so all of our email and actually docs, all Drive is all Vault Archive, so
Yeah.
we have that extra level of Google's, you know, Google has its own backup,
Right.
and then we have the Vault Archive, which
Yeah.
we buy from them, that's part
Yeah.
of them, so, and that holds for 3+ years, whatever our retention schedule is, so we have a somewhat redundant, you know, we do have that archive, and that archives everything, including Google Docs, Drive, you know, everything Google Drive and email.
Is that good?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know any third party like the company I work for. We don't touch Google Workspace or anything like that. And we're a Google customer. So like if the schools and the town were on M365, that's a whole different can of worms. That stuff is there's a lot of providers that can protect that stuff. But going back to the original thing is like, you need to pull that data down. I understand why now. It's just a question of where do you put it? How are you securing it?
Right.
And is that copy that you have, is that protected and immutable, right?
Right.
So are you doing any kind of encryption when you pull it down? Like, do you have any?
So the database pull itself. Well, there's two, we've actually switched over, so, originally they're all, you know, SQL pulls, which is in the ODBC, which is not encrypted.
Right.
But it's in a VPN that we're connected.
Sure,
And so that's good, but we now have the ability to do, SFTP sends, which, you know, we don't like as much. But it is at least a secure connection where it goes, but you're still, you're not using a VPN. So it's a debate between which is better, sending us, you know,
I think they're even one. I mean, I use both.
we wish that, PowerSchool would give us JDBC, but they don't, they will only give us RDBC, so it's
Mhm.
not. That's why we've had to do the VPN connection, because you know, the password sending it clear with RDBC.
right.
I mean, that's still real, you know. I'm not worried about the hack of the data,
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, our biggest fear, obviously, you know, is someone gets to that machine, right? So, they still have to have, but, so my connection to that database, is FileMaker database, is an encrypted connection. So you know, it's password protected, and it's encrypted connection from, you know, in data transfer when I want to look at it. So there's no flat file sitting naked yet to the eye in a data backup, and that's the piece we haven't figured out yet, is that once we do that, once you put that file out in text format, now, like we're saying, now it's readable by,
Whoever's got access to that.
right, so that piece we haven't done yet, I
Yeah.
have it in my own database now, but easily exportable. But that flat file text, we haven't quite figured out yet. I actually would love some advice, you know, advice on that stuff is always welcome, is, you know, what would be it's good to have we should all have a policy about what we're doing. That, you know, what backup makes sense for that, you know, or is that even necessary?
My initial, I mean, I'm not the authority on this, but my initial thought is if they're guaranteeing you backup,
Right.
and this is just a fail safe in case they screw up,
Yeah.
it's like the fact that you have a copy of it. How many times can you protect this? Just protect that copy and be done with it, right?
That's where our thought process
Yeah.
was, is like, this is above what
I'll
we
agree
have to
from
do,
just
but
a straight business
Right.
thing.
You're paying them for this service. You should absolutely test them saying, show me that you can give me back my copy from 6 months ago, or whatever the SLA is that you paid
exactly,
for.
right. So
every
what's
6
nice,
months.
so we have a production and I can't remember where we're up. Are we public? Yes. So I gotta just, we're talking about our structure publicly, I just wanna make sure.
Yep.
But, you know, so we have we have production server and a test environment, our sandbox environment, both in the secure, hosted by them.
Yep.
So I say, move the data from here to there. So I get to see what from my backup, that it replicates and enters my sandbox. Just by doing that, if I did that 4 times a year, I've got two separate servers and two separate data centers now on their end too. What we could have done is left that sandbox hosted in our environment. And then we would have had one with us as well, but the security risk on that didn't seem worth it to have it, that in our data center now. You're taking that.
Yeah, I think what would probably make sense just from, not necessarily a compliance perspective, just for like sleeping at night perspective, is download a quarterly copy and put it somewhere safe, encrypt it at rest.
Yeah, you mean my
Yep.
version.
What you're doing right now,
Yeah.
just make a copy of it somewhere, encrypt it.
Yeah.
Lock away the key.
Yeah.
If you want to put it, like, if this is a one-off thing for
Yeah.
this particular thing, then your suggestion of a hard drive that you throw in a safe
Yeah,
makes absolute sense. At scale, it doesn't, right? If you're doing this for 30 different processes, that doesn't make sense. But for this, for one thing or two things, it's not a lot of skin off your back. Then I would say that's perfectly fine for the scale that we're talking about. Once you get into kind of larger scale stuff, that's where air gap and immutability and, protection of data at rest and in flight really become a concern. How do you automate all that? That's where I think you want to spend your time. This onesie-twosie thing, I think that solution that you guys are already talking about seems to be okay. That's my opinion.
No, and
Yeah.
this is all about opinions and,
Yeah.
thinking. I mean, Mark's looking for our advice and,
It's also about what data is mission critical.
Yeah,
Not everything has to be
Mark can
built,
ping you,
Yeah,
after the meeting, Mark's got your email now.
Sure.
And can ping you after the meeting with any advice. I'm
Yeah.
sure you'd be happy to talk to him.
yeah, it would make sense. Like if you've got a secure share that's backed up by another process. I know that they're a Veeam shop here.
Yeah.
And we can debate about immutability with Veeam, and that's not for this forum, but
Yeah.
but if you have an existing backup process that's grabbing on-prem or town-wide resources, just throw it in a secure share and just make sure the backup is grabbing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, from a school perspective, because we share an employee database, IB is very important to us, but it doesn't fall in our realm, but it's important to us to know what the backup process will be on that, because now that they're hosted, we have to trust in their backups.
I mean, just as an example, so the product that the company I work for, that platform can create a temporary secure share in which you can dump any kind of data you want. That share goes away, right? It opens up a connection it's basically a secured connection to the endpoint.
Yeah.
So that you can go write your data to that endpoint, then it goes away.
Right.
And then
Not
it becomes immutable on first write. So you can do something like that.
So
And
you
that
said,
gives
Roger, we haven't talked yet about what they're, like, it'd be interesting for me to know what they've done since we moved Ivy to the cloud. As far as that backup. So I don't know.
Just relying on the cloud client. And how this, came up worse is, I had a client on Kaseya. I remember hearing that now. They lost everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Terabytes of data gone.
That shouldn't happen.
Whole
age. Yeah.
And you know what Kaseya said to them?
What's that?
They shrugged. These guys were small. They were only $100 million company. They weren't even in line. Kaseya said, go ahead, force us out of business. Go ahead, do there's nothing we could do. We lost it all. Gone.
Yeah, Microsoft makes no guarantee.
Sleep on, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't know that Microsoft makes no guarantee to protect your data. They guarantee availability, but if something were to happen like corruption, guess what? You're out of luck.
So it's something we've got to obviously do more with the
And to
cloud.
address the Google thing, I mean, so we have the email archiving going, right, in a separate thing, but, we try to stress that Google is not the place for student information. So you may be working with a student on curriculum or whatever it may be on a class project. And that's not part of the student record, and so if Google was to have a big pull that and lose all that. That it'd be a huge problem, but it's not, you're not losing, you're not using that grade that.
I think more about the teachers' side of it. I worked in a very small school when I was handling it, but that was a big, teachers share, they collaborate with all their
Yeah.
Google Classrooms and stuff, especially across grade band, so that I was always trying to figure out a way to.
My wife has 10 years of work. She's a teacher. She has 10 years of work storing in her Google Workspace. So
You know, we.
Yeah,
it's
and then
also
somebody
about-
leaves and then deletes their stuff, and then all of
If
a
you
sudden the other teachers
Yeah.
lose, it's,
Yeah.
it's a,
it's bad.
it's a
And that-
problem.
but that's all about practice, so.
Yeah.
Like, we've had that same situation, you know, some
Yeah.
stuff at the high school, we let, like, but that's a switch to shared drives
Right.
and changing ownership. And yeah, they're teaching people to use Google Takeout, like, you can use
Yes.
Google Takeout like a backup for yourself, like,
Right,
just use Google Takeout, take everything out, and you've got a copy of everything that you've got.
yeah,
Like that, you know, like, pretty
Right.
simple, actually, you know,
yeah,
but it's training on their part to know to do it,
Yes.
you know, like, we can't do it for them, but.
right.
they can do it, yeah.
But if you as the G Suite admin can, at least when my teachers left, what I would do,
Yeah, you can reassign that stuff.
so I created like a former staff at our school
Yeah.
account. And everyone who left, I just had everything automatically dumped into
Yeah.
that, because then they would lose access to their email, but we wouldn't lose any of their stuff, but it was the shared.
Yeah,
folders and stuff
yeah,
that was
it's
the
just fine.
issue, Yeah,
Can I ask a Google admin question?
Yeah, yeah.
So Google Takeout, I've never heard of that. Is that,
Google Takeout and Transfer.
is that something the admin has to allow? The-
Yeah,
the
on our
user.
end it does. I'm on the retail product, I'm not sure if they,
I'm talking for schools.
well, the schools, yes, we have to
Yeah.
allow, you need something you have to allow. yeah.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
not default.
Yeah.
You
Right,
mentioned
because we
it
would,
that
at the graduating students, we would also, we would delete their email addresses, similar to what Newton does.
Yeah.
And we-
Yeah, when we say
would
delete,
send
they
out
are, we
instructions.
actually, we don't delete
You
them.
archive, yeah.
We archive,
Yeah.
yeah, they're still there. But yeah, so Google Takeout, you can, the biggest problem with Google Takeout is that, you know, Google right now, because Google's changing that, we're unlimited storage, right, with Google.
Yeah.
Right, for free, you know?
Yeah.
That's changing, but, so a teacher might have, like, a teacher with, you know, one with like a terabyte of data, and then they say, transfer to my Gmail account. And of course, it's not going anywhere, right? If you
Right.
take in 30 megs or whatever, 30
Right.
gigs, I don't want to get, you know, we get something small on that side. And that's our biggest problem, is that they don't, we've given them so much that they can't take it
Right.
out.
It's too much, right?
But you can download it to a machine.
Yeah.
And then you're fine. Okay,
We beat that one to death?
yes. One more piece on that Google to help you. So the other thing with Google Drive.
Yeah.
You know, with the Google Drive or file stream, whatever they
Yeah.
call it now, you can just set your backup, your local backup, to
Yeah,
and now back up your Google.
Yeah.
Drive. Now, you can't, it's not backing up a Google Doc, but anything you have in that file storage, you can do that. That's
Right.
the other piece that we tried.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we killed it.
No, that's okay. So, you know, Mark, feel free, Rob has been kind enough to let you call him and bother him, and feel free to do that,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, officially, so I'm Mark Messiah, I'm the director of IT services at the one school side.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. And you have two kids, right? In
I have
school?
two kids in the high school right now and one graduated, so.
Yeah. So, at least aware of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next item is the fiscal 2024 tech capital request from Dave.
Yes, from the ITC, Information Technology Center request. And first, basically, everything you're seeing is the same thing you saw last year. As a reminder, to the committee and for new members, the town actually does a 5-year capital outlook and plan. And every year, we're updating the 5-year plan by adding the 5th year. And of course, if there are priority changes or, and which has happened this year, changes in cost, then the plan is updated. The first one, I'm just gonna go in the order that these printed, is the summary page. It's actually a 2-year funding request, which the first year of funding is 2025. It's a total of $1,350,000. Essentially, it is the equipment the town uses, and we have a rotation of replacing servers. In 2025, I would be seeking $600,000 appropriation for servers, which and security equipment. This is essentially for one of our data smaller, a smaller service center in a lot of facilities here in town.
Yeah, public service,
Public service administration,
Yeah.
PSAM.
PSAM, and then also
I mean, that's a small, at
Yeah.
the.
Yeah.
center.
we finally got a secondary. The other side is just so we have a secondary servers system, which is kind of nice that we didn't have before that building was there.
The second year of this particular funding question, is for 750,000, which is in fiscal 2026, and these will be primarily, service located in public safety. And how these appropriations work, it's not as though when we get the appropriation, we're running out and replacing all the equipment. We tend to keep the appropriation open for like a couple of years that we phase in and out the service that are being replaced. Some, if they're in a good enough condition, can be repurposed. So, and that's how we approach it, because as anybody knows, when you lose a server, we're waiting a year for a town meeting process to get funding. That's not a good working plan. So that's how we approach securing the funding, and we anticipate the money will be spent over a 2 or 3 year period.
It's like, so this gives Roger and the town IT department the flexibility of what goes in and what's being put in this year, and and it helps them and something, because let's face it, it's kind of nice sometimes he has the money appropriated, he can squeeze another year out of a server. So let's squeeze another year and then buy it, and everyone wins on that versus an emergency request.
Right.
What we're trying, just makes town meeting easier because we know it's smooth. I know it sounds kind of funny. You would say that this would be operational and not capital, but it is always capital. So hence we have to do this.
Yeah, makes sense to have them open and then spending budget.
Yeah.
Even Mark, that is much better than down.
With that,
It's much better than down.
okay,
Just because the flexibility to not have. to.
Okay.
If you don't, correct, you get that.
they're operational, yeah, that's right, it has to be spent that year.
Correct, and having all your equipment being purchased in the same year, one, workload, and two.
Yeah.
It's all the same year, and if you have, certainly the lifespan of them all would be measured together, but if we happen to purchase servers that were not of good quality, that particular make, then you're looking at all your servers and problematic, so that's the other advantage of spreading out server replacement.
Does the town have multiple vendors they deal with from a sourcing perspective, or do they have a single
We're
source?
primarily Dell, but we do also have an AS400. Which for a little longer, it's a legacy application, which is our billing
That's the
and
good idea.
collection application. So basically 8% of our revenue stream. We secured funding for replacement applications, and we're in the process of implementing the new system. We're hoping that the first phase, what it involves is motor vehicle excise billing, real estate tax billing, personal property tax billing, water and sewer billing. What we refer to as general billing is some of the larger receipts that some departments have, insurance, police details, fire alarms. And then a cash receipt system where we can have folks enter their transactions at their offices. So we're not having folks running a methodology of tracking their activity in one system, sending it to a most often in paper, and then having to rekey information. And then there's the training that it's harder for folks to move from one department to another because they have to learn new methodology in terms of handling something as straightforward as a retail transaction. because we're currently have so many different systems in place. So ideally, this will take up most of the applications. There's some specialized cloud applications that will still exist because of the specialties such as like park and rec registration program, the school department for their food lunch program, for instance. And there's several other applications, but the product that we purchased actually integrates with some of these other third-party applications. So even that's going to help reduce some of the manual work behind the tracking and reporting
Mhm.
and measuring income. So so that's a long way of answering your question, is Adele and an AS.
Is the new one, posted, right? The new.
Yes, it's hosted.
That'll take some load off.
That will also take some load
Yeah.
and burden off of us, but of course, the points that have been raised here, we have to think. So many of our applications have been hosted here, and of course, backup. And such that exists, but now that we're pushing more and more out to the cloud, we have to give thought to some of the issues that we've raised and our ability to get our own data should you have a company failure.
Yeah.
I mean, thankfully that's rare, but it does happen. I may note that there's a lot of IT contracts that we enter into every single year, and I'm seeing more and more companies and it's painful negotiations. They're trying to indemnify themselves from failure to do what it is that they say they're going to do. And many times we have to work through and get some of that language struck from the contracts. And of course, the famous one is they should not be responsible for any more than the fee that you paid them. And that's certainly not going to work. But I've been seeing as a growing trend over the last several years. Companies just trying to not be responsible for their own inactions.
Yeah, and another thing, Rob, you haven't heard about before is that Needham can buy through the state contract.
Yeah.
So you're getting the Dell pricing as if you're the state of Massachusetts. So it's great. It's and the Microsoft pricing. It's ridiculous how low it is.
Is it, it's low.
Oh.
You should see education.
I've bid on state contracts before, and it's not necessarily the most efficient process, so,
No.
The education pricing.
Yeah,
yeah,
Even, I mean,
it's crazy low what they have to pay.
that's good.
You
One of the
know,
reasons why we
good
saved dollars.
bulk person. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So all the towns in Massachusetts all piggyback on the state
Mhm.
thing. So now you've got, not only all the state requirements and all the state employees, but every single municipal employee, which is more than the whole state. So it ends up being,
It's one of the few state contracts that actually really works out. Sorry. No, that actually works out as a discount.
as an advantage,
No,
right?
That's interesting. So what contract is that? ITC what? Is that not
I don't
47?
know.
There's so like 74. There are some that is consulting service based, some are reseller of software.
It was 66 and 67, but I can't remember the change recently.
I saw my experience when in my former company, when we bid on the state contract, to get on the state contract, you had to give some bogus config and just like set whatever price you want, just to kind of comply with that, and it wasn't the best price.
It's a slush fund that they run.
Yeah, okay.
So, but when you look at Microsoft and
Yeah.
what's the difference between 100 units, 1,000 units, 10,000 units,
Yeah.
100,000
You
units?
get
Huge.
You get economies of scale, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Huge.
Okay.
There are economies of scale. There's sometimes extra enhancements that you can secure, the Commonwealth secures that individual communities may not be able to get from them because they're just not large enough to
Right.
take their interest. Because you're correct, it's not always the lowest price, but there's added value, and certainly contract problems that you have the Attorney General's office behind you, rather than your own local council having to fight.
Sure.
Fight.
You know,
We have this other, for hardware, we're in this town, we're allowed to buy other contracts too, so it's not just the state contract.
Yes.
There's all these different buying
Yeah.
consortiums, and typically Dell will just finance whatever is the but
Go
they
through Delta
give
Ride.
a municipal discount, and they give education, a cheaper discount. And it's,
It's, I remember one time I was complaining, Roger was talking to me about AS400 tapes, and it was at the time where I still had occasional work in that. And like I said, oh, watch, the damn tapes are like 50, 60 bucks. What the? No, they're not. They're $5. And, it was that much different. It was like, oh, I guess I can't argue with you, Roger. Okay, you can have as many tapes as you want, is what it ended up. It was just like I said, well, Roger, what happens when that stuff's getting into some serious coin? And he's like, no.
Good.
And that was my first introduction to it. So, yeah, it's kind of different. Okay.
The next one on the next one, page 6, so your page numbers in the lower right.
Yeah.
This is new. It's been a concern for a while, and it's actually the goal of the library trustees that want to see something happen sooner rather than later, as the select board. Our telephone system is old and antiquated, and we're seeking funding this over 2 years. The first year, which would be fiscal 2024, which would be taken up by town meeting this May, is $50,000 basically for consulting services, and to the extent that there's any design necessary with what's proposed, to identify an appropriate telephone system replacement that would be townwide. We're discussing the senior center, the Rosemary Recreation Complex, the public library, public works, town hall.
You guys involved? Or?
We did ours already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's
But,
this?
I mean, we should talk, is, in 5 years changes everything, and where we went, we went to the short term.
I remember you had to with one.
Well, our phone systems were 20 years old and just failing,
Yeah,
so we
you told
went.
me, yeah.
You went to a MyTel system?
So we went to it was ShoreTel, which in contract negotiations was bought by Mitel, so our brand is Mitel, but it was ShoreTel, it was the ShoreTel product that Mitel bought,
Mhm.
which is now being sunsetted
Yeah.
by Mitel, not, let's just say not fully enhanced, so
Oh, yes,
we should talk.
we will be.
So the police went with Mitel because that's what we were on, it was working well, but even in that short amount of time, it's just a changing landscape. And we have some pretty specific security. My basic thing was that we could not have a phone system that would not be redundant if someone cut the line, so you have active shooters, someone cuts the line, I know it's silly, but that's how we think, right? Someone cuts your main lines, if you can't call classroom to classroom, that's a problem, right? All these cloud-based systems doesn't happen. Because the phone is talking to the cloud, not to the central server. So the world has changed now. We can now get a cloud-based system with a redundant local backup that can allow that. So there's a lot of options these days, and we can all.
We will.
Yeah.
And again, some of the changes that the school department made a few years ago left the same phone system the town is still using.
Right, exactly. We gave you our newest ones and we're band-aiding them through, right?
Yeah.
Our
and-
newest 10-year-old ones. we gave
And I think I had told you in the initial stuff, I said, yeah, the town and the schools get along and need them.
Yeah.
Which is, there's
Are
no
the
fighting.
phones still the Intercom?
What's that?
Are the
You
phones
know.
still the Intercom?
Well, it connects through. It's not, it is, it's a different.
It's not
thing, but
Fighting,
it's not-
arguing, we don't have our own.
But the Samsung system is fully unsupported by the company, by Samsung, where there's no, it's off.
So are
What,
you,
your old system or your current?
are you
The
not
current-
planning
The
on,
system that the town has now,
Yeah.
so that's why, you have to, gotta go.
so is there no plan, so is the plan not to touch the school, police, fire, and just do the rest of the town, or are you
No,
gonna
the
combine
town
everything?
goes and then they follow on with follow-on projects.
Or,
lessons
so
learned from
officially
each
right now, the schools are separate from the town, we separated the phones are now separate. We own our phone system, and we budgeted, and we now own the budget and maintain. It's a good conversation to talk about whether or not that the town should look at it.
I think you'd wanna
But that's the
unify
other conversation.
But
That's exactly what the purpose of the
Yeah,
the initial money is.
This is
to
the
figure out
planning and
what
design.
what makes sense to do. I mean, if it says, well, everything should be moved forward, then everything, if it makes sense to partition.
Yeah.
And then we have redundancy too. We may end up two systems, one at the school and one at the town. However, if one fails, we can.
Yeah.
We've got a backup, and then we've got also public service, which is kind of important.
And we still will always have a need to the copper lines, because elevators, fire alarm systems, that's how they still operate.
Well, those don't use cellular, huh?
So, no, it's all,
Elevators
Twisted pair.
still have to be copper.
yeah, that's why it's.
Not that,
puzzled is
most things are
the
copper
fire
anymore,
code
but
won't let you do
fiber
cellular.
converted to plots, but
You have to be
Yeah,
hardwired.
twisted pair is they used to call it, right?
so it's, yeah, there's something about weird about the elevators, that they're still required to be.
Under the state.
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the purpose, and the thought is that that we have recommendations and such, so we could get the funding for implementation the following year. At this time, based on very limited information, we're assuming it's gonna be $500,000 cost. But of course, once we know what technologies are out there, the scope and breadth of what the town will do, we'll have a sense of the price. Price could be less, or it could be more than that, but certainly in terms of forecasting the cost, that's what we're working with.
The schools were 325.
You really think you're gonna get more than 20 years out of a VoIP system?
But nope, I do not believe that, although they're probably thinking our current system now is
Finance.
coming up on 30, coming up on 30 years.
Well, we got it for 30 years this time. We can do 20,
No, it's very unlikely. it would be 20 years.
I picked up one of the old.
School budget?
No.
Wow.
So we still have some.
If you can get 10 out of a VoIP system, you're lucky.
Yeah, and again, it's the changing tech and
We have we slated to go 5 to 7 years, well, 5 years, but we can start from schools, we planned on 5. Somewhere between 5 and 7, I'm sure. It's all about what's next, is if you really want, it could move to an operating system request, operating request, because it could be just an annual fee for a cloud-based system that is per line, for whatever it is, and then you're not in capital anymore, you're in operating, but that's.
Yeah, we're going to the cloud for phones, we went to the
They all
cloud
are.
for email. What's the difference?
But realistically, you're probably looking at 10-year life. Those are drop-down menus and select the wrong option.
I'm not trying to be difficult.
No, that's not very difficult. I just.
More realistic.
Oh, it's Dave. I thought it was the finance committee putting an unrealistic thing in.
No. So with that, the next item that we're really looking at, starting on page 10, it's been there, and it's still looking at 2025 town building security and traffic camera replacement. This is paid for the cameras that already exist, and the technology has changed so much in the last several years.
I'm trying to even think, when was it, when did we put those in?
All the cameras on this building, for instance, were put in when the building was redone back in 2010, 2011. So,
A dozen years ago already.
yeah, but
Okay.
the camera technology.
Oh,
is old. Yeah.
Oh,
And we also have cameras on some of the roadways and intersections, and these will just give better angles, better being able to monitor traffic flows much better for the police department. And you see them in a lot of areas, even actually behind the curve in this area. Our network manager has done a lot to open our eyes of the benefits of doing this.
And there, explain that there were 2 cameras in every camera. There's a high and a low. Because the low one is tracking how much traffic it is, whereas the high is actually, you could read something off the card, which is, you're like, why would you have high and low resolution? That was my question.
But the other thing about
That was the time
cameras is that, they do they do 8265. Most of the cameras in the building are they have now are 8264. So the data storage requirements well, almost like a quarter. It's a
Mhm.
huge benefit, so potentially you could be offsetting some of this by a server stuff later on, you know, but,
Space.
I mean, probably expanding, so you're not gonna see a drop, but you're, you know,
Well, did you see the latest, the Google, it's a Google Glass? Not, no, who is it? Ray-Ban glasses with cameras on. You seen the Ray-Ban? It's like, it's
that's what we
like,
need kids wearing in the high school.
Yeah,
Oh, God.
that's what it is. They get. It's a camera on glass. You can see the little things. You know, we were looking for Christmas presents for people in our company. You know, we always have to get something tech. Instead, everyone's gonna get Fitbits, so I'm testing it.
The next item, this is one of the examples I mentioned at the beginning. This is the building switches. These are the larger switches that need to be replaced. It's been on funding since for 2024 for a number of years. We had been carrying a cost of 90,000. The pricing that we're seeing now for the switches, it's to get the same quantity of switches, $130,000.
It's gone
But
up, yeah.
it's just amazing. The cost.
Some stuff goes up and some stuff goes down, huh?
It used to be that way, that technology got less and less expensive, but COVID has somehow made hardware expensive again.
Well, and back ordered, like, they
And
can't
back
get
ordered.
it.
It's
Yeah.
because it's back
People-
on
This
chips.
is like a year.
Yeah,
We're
when,
still waiting for the shipment.
when do you need these?
And a couple of them yesterday.
Hmm.
So.
Like I know Cisco is on, I think, a 10-month backlog.
Yeah, all the Moroccan
We were
switches are
lucky, I
taking
went
like
to the old
a
side, they
year.
told us it was gonna come in April, you know, well, we're moving in January, but it came in, so we happened to get.
And it's so difficult because it affects functionality, as you can appreciate, with some of the
Mhm.
buildings, and folks are just, fellow employees are just pounding away on IT. Well, you're not doing it quick enough. You can just get this, you can just get the switch. What's the big deal? Why does it take so long? And they're forwarding the suppliers email showing that it's on order, back order. We're thinking 6 months, might be 8 months, might be 10 months. And yet, other than the people that actually have to maintain and install these things, people don't appreciate how long the waits are for this type of equipment, and they're able to have a healthy markup on it.
Yeah, the state, looking for that switch, the state contract vendor reached out to me, oh, we have that switch, you know, you're looking for it. It's like 50% markup over what our state contract vendor normally is, and 50% markup, like, how can you be on the contract if you're in that much more, but they can. Because the demand.
The next item is also been on the plan 2024. This is video projection equipment specific. This is for interior display boards and such at the Rosemary Recreation Complex. And no change in the pricing here. And we're actually, while we're still moving forward to seek funding, we're also seeking grant opportunities, because this is involving public health consumption. There's been money made available. It's in the public health arena.
David, we will be able to help you with, save money, so, yeah, we have a full-time installer on our end. So we might be able to reduce your cost on that by a lot.
Or
Do you guys still do the projector Apple TV combo?
Yeah, we actually, we had to move away from our smart boards and our smart TV. The Williams was built for smart TVs at the very end. And it was already funded that way, just because for a capital request, we were not able to get funding for replacement for our smart board. So we have almost like 425 smart TV districts, so add that, multiply that out, that's a huge capital request to replace it. So we got all kinds of funding to put them in from wonderful groups who gave us money to do it. Fast forward 8 years, they're all failing and
Right.
no money to replace them, so we went back to this. We have a projector screen, Apple TV,
Yeah,
iPad with a real stylus, with a, pencil, and it's taken 3 years, but the teachers, most of them love it, Not
right
all of
before,
them.
right
math
before I
teachers
left the
love it.
school that I worked at, we bought, did you look at the touch view panel? for
Yes,
them?
yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
They love those,
Yeah.
the teachers.
We have, so at Williams, they're all, get the brand.
Smart view or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were, But they usually touch very little, it's funny,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's all tossing up from the devices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's basically a big ass smart TV.
Yeah, when we,
Yeah.
when we replace Williams, it won't be with smart, we'll put a 75-inch standard TV at a third of the cost when we have to replace them. Because they're not using for the touch. Some schools have gone all in, and it's all about how you do curriculum and you show it, but if you can't afford it, and you can't, we show it that we can't afford it, then let's do it right the other way. Well, let's do it in a way we can sustain it, so
Right.
that's what we've been doing.
They're not gonna use it.
It seems a little bit backwards, like it seems
Yeah.
that we've gone back, but in the end,
I never saw a smart board at any company ever.
well, the thing is that people like them for like advancing a slide, because they can swipe them,
Yeah,
but that's a very expensive,
Right.
clicker, we
Never-
had teachers
Never
that were
saw
on.
them at any company, no matter how technology
Yep.
advanced they were, ever, right?
Ever. And
You know?
so my sister-in-law, her school district, they had smart boards. They couldn't afford the bulbs in them
Yeah.
to replace the projectors, I guess, that are.
oh,
go with
yeah,
the
all
they're
smart
they're
board.
ridiculous.
And so they got
They're
revolved.
stuff,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because there were some that were all in one unit.
Yeah.
It was an idea that technology passed over, because all of a sudden you get a 75-inch TV for
Yeah.
$600, and it's good enough, and you can control it from.
From the
Any device.
iPad and Apple TV, that's great. I mean, I use those for conferences and for like.
And you have to get the real pen, you have to get the real.
The Apple Pencil.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we actually, for teachers, we did keep out again the Logitech crayon. Same way.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like 85% there, which is great. But half the cost, and, once again, we have 700 teachers, so it adds a lot, saves money.
yeah. The
And they
touch
love it.
panels were like, they were about 5,000 a piece.
So it ends up.
We got them with already put computers behind them, but the whiteboard feature, I thought was
So
awesome.
they do, that is the feature that they like, and
Yeah.
the ones who were used to draw, like,
We're doing.
so math teachers love to write their equations on the board, it's a hard, that's a hard transition to a little
Yeah.
iPad,
Yeah,
I get it. I get it.
And whiteboards are not an option.
Well, they
They are,
project
but-
onto whiteboards
Yeah.
now.
But
They
you
could
know,
run on
so
the
if
whiteboard.
you wanna save that, you're writing out your equations, now they just save it, and they
Right.
throw it in their Google Classroom, and they're done. They've given that out, if the kid's not there that day, they still get everything that's written out.
Yeah.
Kids with, IEP,
Yep.
fix up, it's great, but
Oh, sure. I mean, it's great. It's already captured digitally, but the other way around it, like I'm just thinking what I use for my meetings is if I'm writing on a whiteboard and I want to save it, I'll take a picture of it and throw it in my OneNote.
yeah, no, the kids were doing that long before
Yeah.
Right.
they figured out the sort of thing, you see everyone.
I'm old
school.
Because they're all collecting with it,
Yeah.
So it's a sustainable method. I mean, a projector is under $700. The screen's gonna last 20 years plus, and plus in that equation, we were able to give them sound field audio, so every classroom now has full microphone, so kids can be voice lift and all
Yep.
that all came with that package. And, but having the AV installed in house saved a fortune, saved all that labor. It took us a lot longer to do it, but saved us a lot of money in labor,
Okay, now,
Yeah, Anyway, so
Nice to hear, and-
if we can help, it doesn't feel like a long list there, if we can help.
Definitely. The last thing actually, that has already been funded from the monies from the federal government offer. This is basically expanding and upgrading our wireless network for wax and multiple buildings here in town. The library was the first to do it, and their system was actually out and for several months, but now the new equipment and operating, and people are enjoying it. So we're in the process of procuring those equipment and services to get it installed. But it's referred to as OPER, that's the American Recovery Plan
Mhm.
funding from the federal government. And there were specific categories of expenses that you could use those funds for, and one of them was for wireless and broadband expansion.
So that's all that, does anyone have any questions on anything specific within the package? And we can vote on the whole package versus each individual item? Questions or comments or anything?
So this will be one warrant?
These are the requests for the next 5 years, and only 3 items will actually be at the May town meeting, the ones that we put up this one's for. And the others are 25, 26, and 27.
My only question is with the VoIP system, the, what is it, 50,000 or
Yeah,
so?
pretty low.
Yeah, and
Well,
that-
well,
That's the consultant.
No, I'm talking the consulting, yeah.
Yeah.
So this may be where I'm naive, but I would have thought that like any vendor that we do business with, they do some of this consulting kind of free of charge. Is that not the case? I mean, I guess it always baffles me at town meeting where we approve all these like consultant requests and all this funding to do studies and studies and studies, and the vendors don't offer this as part of like, they get the business, they'll design the
You have
system.
to have an independent
You have to,
arbiter
got
to
it.
ensure that you're not being taken advantage of by the.
I was trying to figure the way to word it and
Yeah.
get the right wording. Yeah, it's common and that's so that the town is, it's like hiring someone who will not be, trying to put the system in, you're not guaranteed, they're not guaranteed to put the system in. They're just there to do the RFP.
Okay, so I was gonna say the consultant's gonna write the RFP for you.
Well, it would assist in that, but just actually get through the process, they present to us what are options out there, get an understanding of what it is that we're actually looking for, so that our specifications are identifying what it is that we want and not what a particular solution that might be
Right.
presented.
So they'll help you do the scope and they'll help you figure out what you want. How do you pick this vendor? Is that a bid process?
That's also a bid process.
You write an RFP to get an RFP,
Yeah.
right? Right.
Welcome to the.
Welcome to
Yeah.
government.
municipal
Yeah.
procurement.
It takes a while to get used to this.
Yeah, no, I've seen it from the other side, being one of those vendors, so
Yeah,
yeah.
it's interesting to sit and like
Yeah.
hear how,
Sometimes there's a clause that the person who's the consultant can't be the vendor.
yeah.
Right. And.
Is that the way the town works?
It depends on what's involved. In some areas, you do need them, such as engineering specifications, that they're the ones designing the bridge. You want them vested in the actual construction of the bridge. Now, they won't be the general contractor, but they will still oversee the project.
Mhm.
They'll act as a project.
So,
Right.
But items like this, they're gonna earn their compensation. And their compensation is not gonna be dependent upon the value of the contract that may come as a result of the work. That's partly why you do get, my experience has been, you get better consultants because they know they're gonna get compensated. Whereas not only because, if you work for the free services, the vendor, even the best vendor who's coming with a great solution for you has a vested interest to sell you as much as possible. And in order to earn more compensation, they already know what their compensation is and who the town eventually selects. Does not impact their income.
And then sometimes there isn't one, like when we looked at the revenue packages, it was different. You knew which ones worked in the state of Massachusetts. We had some idea, we went out to look around, you post it. Right? It was kind of it's a different scenario,
Yeah.
like you said about the phone. I don't know, what is there out there? Where is the marketplace going? And all of us look at each other and say, we have no idea. And hence,
It'd be interesting to see the result because there is just so much bias in technologies and whatever. It'd be interesting to see what they actually.
Come up with.
What their background is, to say what their bias is.
well, that's when you're looking at the RFP for the RFP, right?
Yeah.
And any other questions on any of the capital things, or we can vote on it as,
Straightforward.
okay. We're holding a vote to approve the fiscal 2024 tech capital requests plus additional ones for additional years. Anyone seconded? Okay, and we can approve by voice vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None, unanimous?
Future meetings, I would suggest, the
You
earliest
knocked out a
meeting-
couple already. Sorry, I
I'm
interrupted. Sorry, Abram. Sorry.
Oh. The future meetings, I'm thinking a good time would be a check-in, just would be in February, perhaps late in February.
But I thought we already had, I thought we'd knocked out like 3 last
I
time.
think we did.
We
Oh,
did,
we
we,
did?
we put one at February 2nd,
My thinking hasn't changed.
and we put one at,
It looks like we only went to February 2nd.
yeah, we did this one in February 2nd.
Okay.
You know, that's
Yeah.
what it ended
Because this
up.
popped up, but I don't think I saw the, the meeting notification saying,
No, yeah, I'll send out a meeting invite from that, because are we still doing Zoom for next meeting?
Yes, the select boards adopted the policy that they would like all boards to be
Yeah, that's fine.
publicly accessible.
Yeah, not a problem. So we've got one for February 2nd, and after that, do you have any?
I would suggest after February, the next one be in April.
Okay. I have a date of April 6th. Is the first Thursday. Does that work?
One thing that to propose, if you want, I used to come and do a school update, of where we're at and all that kind of thing. If you wanted to, I don't know if you guys have seen school technology. but
Yeah, we have.
If you want to do a road trip, you also could, we could do the meeting at a school and then we can kind
Sure.
of walk you through. This is.
You wanna do that
What a
like,
classroom looks like. I mean, maybe you've all seen it, guys being parents and whatever, but like,
No, I
don't know
well,
whether
my
that's-
kids have been gone from the
Yeah.
schools for 10 years, so it's completely
Right.
different from me.
I wouldn't do it, I mean, what, have you all seen William?
Yeah, we
did
that last
toured
time.
us when you were-
Think about what's that?
You toured us that.
We told you Williams, that's right,
Yeah.
but it might be good to see a school like, that's not brand new,
Yeah.
just to see what. a typical
mean
classroom
Mitchell?
looks like. It's funny, but Mitchell had, Mitchell was our first to adopt our new model and they went for it because they had, they had to work.
We're
it out,
stuck, yeah.
And they went for it and now they've been doing great, but wherever you want to go, but go to the high school, go wherever we can show
Yeah,
you.
you want
One of
to do
our-
that for like the March, do a March meeting and do that, because I don't want to co-opt Dave's stuff or.
And I don't know whether,
Oh,
that-
I could certainly accommodate.
but does that cause any problems with like public meeting or?
No, certainly you would have your public meeting, then you're allowed to adjourn before four. That's actually in the statute allows towards.
Yeah,
If you're interested, if you want to do
Yeah.
something different.
do you want to do it at the February or the April meeting?
Well, consider our move, can we go later would be greater.
No, and
Yeah,
that's
that's
fine. So,
You all know we're getting a new administration building.
Yeah.
We know this, yes. As taxpayers, you know it, right?
yeah, the old Emery
Grover, yeah.
Yeah,
fix up.
I won't bring you to Hillside to show you where we're at.
When is that starting?
So you guys are in Hillside?
We're in Hillside, yes.
I was asking someone, is Hillside being used? That was my
Yeah,
question.
so it was the transition from police and fire.
Yeah, fire was there. And then,
Yeah,
And then actually during COVID, my team moved out of Broad Meadow, almost all of them, and moved into Hillside to spread out. Because we didn't have space. And we were there for 2 years. The police let us tuck in with them. And then we're actually gonna probably stay there. We're moved to the cafeteria and more of a permanent. So even when we move back into Emerald Grover, my team will stay over there, for.
In
Because
Broad
we
Meadow?
have people.
in Broadmeadow.
No, at Hillside,
At Hillside.
in the old cafeteria.
Oh, at the whole cafeteria.
Wow.
And yeah, the
Mice
town has
and all.
done well. We joke about High Rock. High Rock
My
saved the
oldest
town
one
the
there.
accident,
What's that?
My oldest is
Yeah,
paying
when we
one
did the-
half.
Oh, really?
Right,
Yeah.
that one, that was-
My mom does.
Oh,
Really?
it's huge. That
And
was
the library as well.
And yeah, it turned out that, having these old buildings, even, that are still have roofs and four walls is not a bad thing, even an old
Well,
building
think
that's not
think about for
used.
us operationally, like, it's such an old building and it stinks that way, but be able to have deliveries like tractor trailers pull in and not have to worry about kids in the, at Broad Meadow trying to, tractor trailer pull up
Yeah.
during the school day. To deliver whatever, it's not a
The
good thing.
poor guy, yeah.
Well, it's not good for anybody,
Yeah.
and of course, like the special ed rooms are right there where ours, so you're like loading,
Yeah.
vendors have to come through there, it's just not a great. So this will
So-
move our operations over there, we'll still have our central data center is still at Broad Meadow for the time being, but
So there's no tear down plan for Hillside in the future.
Not for the-
until we get out of there. right?
Yeah, not for
And
the-
you can't break ground on it, right? Isn't there something about
There's-
digging on?
Yeah,
that
there's
site?
PCE on
Yeah.
site.
Yes, there is some bakers and such which are being
Yeah.
remediated, but digging down would be problematic. That's one of the considerations when they were looking at, do they keep the
The school,
elementary
right.
school there?
Yeah, and so,
Yeah, everybody
It's a-
says, why
it's
not?
not a
build
bad
Mitchell there,
building.
but you can't. Right,
Right.
right.
but it's, having a spare and if and when Mitchell goes, there's your perfect place
I
to.
believe the statement was made that students will never enter that building.
Yeah.
And if you walk in there, you'll see why.
Oh, please, it's horrible looking,
But
it doesn't years ago,
Imagine that now plus like
10 years.
10 years.
weird, like, Frankenstein renovations that with wires and ducts hanging.
Yeah.
It's pretty. It's
It's a
interesting.
commercial building now,
No, no,
not a school.
it's not even that. It literally looks like Frankenstein.
Yes, we could have a haunted house fundraiser.
I mean, cables, ducts, pipes running by your head, like, it just, it's in the very interesting.
Right. So where would we,
It's up to you guys, whatever school. you would
whatever
like.
school, does
I
anyone have
go
a
for the high
preference?
school, but. just
I mean, the
'cause we
high
saw an
school,
elementary
with the high school, we can talk about security cameras, we can talk about digital displays, we can talk about, the way the cafeteria audio is, so there's probably more to show
Up to
there.
everyone else.
The classrooms are identical essentially to elementary because the setup is the same, even though, there's not little furniture, there's.
We can actually sit in the seats. Our average. We're down on the floor,
Totally up to you guys. When's the April date? Sorry,
Does 6 work for everyone?
that works for you guys.
And we're doing that in high school?
Yeah, we'll do it at the high school and,
So we'll book a conference room somewhere for you. Well, so they have a really nice conference room in the new building, in Aaron Seacott suite there. I'm sure we can book that and, you can have your meeting and then we can, your doors, that makes sense. We can set the Zoom
Yeah.
up there.
Yeah.
4:30? 4:30?
yeah, do the same, 4:30 and,
Do you
Yeah, yeah,
want
but
the permit,
these
or do you want, like,
Mark goes
How
and
do you want to do it? Like,
gives
get-
us like a,
We can reserve that room
his,
with a permit.
like
That's
town.
how we have to,
the
after
school
4:30,
committee,
we don't want rooms in the-
presentation, goes through all the new stuff. It's
Do you
like,
want them to do it?
even when I didn't have kids in it, it was very interesting. It was just gave us a full end, I like your PowerPoints. It kept me up to speed when I had no kids in the school. It's like,
Right.
oh, this is all cool stuff, given that,
I forgot
my
what
kids
it was,
went
I
from,
forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
my kids went from no tech to tech.
It was,
know.
it was the dust that just got it.
Yeah.
It was pretty new, yeah.
What was this? Oh,
When we
yeah.
towards Sunita.
Yeah.
And then a year later, we can hopefully do a few of them. Everett River building.
Oh, that'd be nice.
I kind of like the old version.
Being in the basement, I'm ready for to see a new one.
Oh, yeah, like, no, yeah. It was, it looks like an 1890s building, and it did.
It would be a nice building. I mean, we're lucky. We're lucky as a town. We are lucky. Town's been good to us.
This is-
I will say that.
Okay, so that takes care of.
I am
Future
not aware
meetings?
of any, yes, and I'm not aware of any unanticipated items that need to be addressed.
Yeah. We didn't have any of those. Anyone have any?
Do we have an attendee?
We do have an attendant.
Yes, it's nice. We haven't had any since the beginning. It's
Yeah.
nice that the, that's all along.
Anyone, anything else? Anyone have any questions or, motion to adjourn? All those in favor? Aye. And we're done. On record. Thanks, Mark, for coming.
Oh,